So, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Joe Naz Podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of having one of my close friends and someone who I don't want to use the word coach, but I'm going to use it just for general terms so that people can understand what he does. But as he says, he is a human being tuning fork. He's someone that helps people to reconfigure the processes of their mind. He's someone that I respect a lot. And today in this podcast, we actually have an opportunity to dive into some of the insecurities and a lot of the stuff that I've been working through lately. And Chris helps me to uncover the truths of what's within my heart through the skills that he has. And through going through that process, I was able to come to a lot of conclusions about changes that I need to make in my life and specifically becoming devoted to myself again. And what I will say is that through seeing a lot of my insecurities on this episode, I think that you'll be able to learn a lot about yourself. And if you're interested in joining in, doing a little bit of work with us and watching my heart open up and unfold, then I would tune into this episode today. Thanks for chiming in. I'm excited to share with you. So, welcome to another episode of the Joe Naz Podcast, and I'm here with one of my close friends, somebody who runs the Mindfuck Podcast, and today I'm so excited to have you here, Mr. King. Thank you for coming and being on the podcast today.
It's my pleasure to be here, Mr. King. Come on. Would you?
That's fair. Hey, I mean, you chose the name.
I guess. So yeah, grateful to be here. Good to see you, brother.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So today we are going to be having Chris, a close friend of mine, on the podcast, and I want to give a little intro to him just to tell you guys a little bit about him. So we couldn't figure out an exact title for Chris, and that's because he's someone who has a jack of all trades, but also someone who, some people might use the term coach for lack of a better term. He uses the term human systems engineer. Somebody has called him the human tuning fork. So I called him a Swiss Army knife. He really is able to help with whatever is going to be needed by someone who's looking to improve, grow, and he's going to help guide them through that process. To give you a little bit of intro about Chris. So Chris became a championship NCAA ice hockey player after learning to skate only a year before. He finished a master's class without ever having finished his undergraduate degree. He abandoned his six-figure career in tech to chase his dream of being an on-air radio personality, making only $12 an hour in Los Angeles. I don't know how you survived. He was on the air for over a decade, so I'm sure I want to hear all about that today. He landed a job at a neuroscience institute and has no clinical background. He rejected a lucrative job offer to elect to be broke and homeless and build a company out of his car. And simply, I want to ask you, how did you achieve all this? I know you've also written a book, and that book has helped a lot of people achieve their goals. So this is the introduction to Chris. And yeah, I guess, how do you feel about your own introduction?
That's wild. It sounds a lot cooler when you say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the funny thing about like my own reality, my own framework. When somebody reflects it back to me, like I don't have any reference point other than me and my own experience. And so when somebody else says it, I'm like, wow, that sounds really different than what's going on in my head about it. So
yeah. And when I do these intros, a lot of times I'm giving an intro, which is almost like a resume of what's provided and what I know about the person, but it's not a real description of who you are, right? All of those things that you've been through, they add to basically the skill set that you now have today. And when I read that, it's super interesting to me because I'm like, he must have learned so much from being a radio talk show host, going and being an NCAA championship player in hockey. Like a lot of that stuff he's going to learn a lot from sports. So I see each one of those things and I'm like, what did he learn from that? What exactly can we take from it? And how did it help to mold the person you are today?
Wow, that's going to be a really, okay, see how I can do this succinctly. So my experience is they sort of framed everything. It's kind of backwards, like I did the thing and then figured out how I was able to do it much later, right? So when we talk about okay, how did I become an ice hockey player? How did I end up with a radio career? Like that's a ridiculous, even back then it was a ridiculous kind of endeavor. Like statistically, you're never going to make it. And you're not going to get paid anything if you do. And then you got to figure out how to survive. I mean, the ongoing joke at the time is, what do you call a radio DJ without a significant other? Homeless is the answer, right? So, but as I as I did these things, like I started working in the Neuroscience Institute of the hospital. I started studying with the Flow Research Collective and the Flow Genome Project. I started training with retired Navy SEALs and Army Special Forces.
Mm.
And I started to understand the science behind how I was able to do everything that I had done. And so I was like, wow, it's not magic. I just figured out how and then learned about the science later.
Okay. Got it. So you are very quick and adaptive in a sense where you're able just to pick up things very quickly. And it seems like you're also interested in a multitude of different topics and ideas because you've had a wide range of background. And so I guess out of all the things that you have done, what was your favorite thing that you did?
Gosh, favorite. That's really, I loved being on the air for a while. I mean, the industry changed, which sort of soured the milk, but at the, what I'll call the height of my radio career, there's very few things that gave me more juice than being on the air and having a live call because I never knew what somebody was going to say.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not one for plans. Like I can create plans all day and I will be off book by about step 2.
Yeah.
And so having the ability to be really flexible and go in different directions was just a lot of fun. There was one in particular where I had set up a radio bit and really had an idea that it was going to go this way. And the guy that I was working with, who was a friend of mine, very good improv guy, went in a completely different direction. And that was one of the best bits because it was so unexpected.
Got it. And so, I mean, when you were running this radio show, what were the topics you were discussing? Or were you just like playing music and then talking in between? Or were you even in charge of the music? What was that like?
Yeah, well, the music was all pre-programmed, right? That the idea of making requests sort of ended a long time ago. The music's all set up in advance, but we did, it was kind of wacky morning radio shtick, right? And it was on, I was on an alternative rock station. So you can imagine the target demo was, 24 to, maybe 45, 42, somewhere in that male to female split. And it was, we would just come up with whatever. And fortunately, we had a very flexible program director that really let us do pretty much anything. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome, man. Yeah, so I guess today we have you here, and I wanted to specifically talk to you about some stuff that's going on with me.
Yeah.
And I would love to get some assistance with working through it. I can kind of just like brain dump all at once if that's what you would prefer.
Yep.
And then I can hear your opinion about stuff and would love to work through this stuff. So what I've been struggling with in my life lately is basically I've been struggling with social media specifically. And so I hired a new social media company and I'm spending quite a bit of money. And just to be like transparent on it, I'm spending about like 12 grand a month on social media on all different platforms. And I know that for me, in regards to the social media, one, spending that kind of money, which isn't really the thing that's the issue of here. It's the validation that I guess that I receive from the social media. And so in regards to what we've been posting, we've actually been going backwards in regards to likes and comments and the amount of engagement. So it's been, I guess, hurting me on like a hurt little boy level in the sense of like, for me, a lot of my trauma comes from like being a child and not feeling a lot of love from my mom and not receiving the validation or being told that I was good enough or being validated in the sense that you are worthy or that you are basically good. And so for me, I guess that maybe in my mind, I'm correlating the not doing as well on social media and actually doing worse is hurting my feelings even more because I feel too that the content I'm putting out is actually stuff that I really believe in and I really like and I enjoy it. And I really feel that it is beneficial to the people that are listening. But the fact that it's getting worse engagement and it's going backwards is like making me like second guess myself. Like, am I not putting out good stuff? Is it not good what I'm discussing? Is it actually bad topics? Do I suck? Right? And like a big part of me too is like, I do one day eventually want to be someone who is followed by a lot of people because validation feels good, even though I know that it's not what's important in life and it doesn't matter what other people think. And I know all these things, but I do feel that I would still like that validation. And I guess when it comes in the back of my mind, I'm like, what if I put in all this effort? I do all this stuff to share all this information. I'm spending all this money to share this stuff because I'm not really making money from sharing this stuff on social media. And so it's like, I'm doing all this stuff and it's like, what if I never get the validation that I'm looking for? What if I'm 20 years from now, I don't grow any followers?
What happens if you do?
Yeah, I'm not. What happens if I do? I guess that I feel validated, and it makes me want to do it more.
What does it create?
It helps me to feel inspired to create more, because the more that I guess that I'm validated,
Go
the
deeper.
more
If you get the validation that you're seeking from this, what does that create
within myself,
in regards to the relationship between you and social media, between you and validation?
like a looped circle of like validation where I'm getting what I want.
A dependency
Dependency,
creates a dependency,
where I'm only going to be happy if I receive the validation that I'm getting from social media.
which takes you down the road of self-betrayal, which in my experience, nothing good comes from self-betrayal.
Yeah.
So you lose your authenticity, you lose the connection to what is true, to the truth, not your truth, the truth. And let me frame that a little bit. There's a difference between your truth and the truth, my truth and the truth. My truth is all about preferences, right? Your truth, same thing. It's what we like and don't like, want and don't want. The truth is a frequency. That is like an E string of a guitar. It just is. There's no debating it, and you feel it. Like it just lands in your body, and you go, "That's true."
Yeah.
Right. So you're potentially going down the road of creating a dependency on something that leads you down a road of inauthenticity, and then you're lost.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like you're saying it right now, I feel it in my body that what you're saying is true, right?
That's the truth.
That's
right?
the truth. Yeah.
Because you can feel that. So
Yeah.
that's what we call a truth response.
Yeah.
Right. I say something, you'll laugh, you'll cry, your hair stands up on end.
Yeah.
It's because I'm connected to something. I can just see what's going on here.
Yeah.
So what do you need to do to give yourself the validation that you are so needing from the external world?
Obviously I need to give the validation to myself, and it needs to come from within.
Right.
And it's something that I've been working on for the last couple of years, going through my journey. Like part of the reason that I up and disappeared for 7 months last year was because I realized I had such a deep hatred for myself and like didn't have any love for myself. And it was a lot of just not good enough, not validated enough. Because for me, like growing up, it was like, if I didn't get an A plus, I'm not going to get into the details, but I would get into a lot of trouble. And it was, a bit, at home, it wasn't the best relationship with that. So it's like, it was always just, even though when I would put in my best effort, if it wasn't perfect, it just wasn't good enough. So my whole life, I guess that's been the dialogue that I've had for myself, and I've worked past a lot of it. And it might just be that this is still a day by day practice for me, getting a little bit better every time. But I'm not sure if like there is an immediate solution, or maybe it is just that I need to just decide that I've gone past it and just move past it. But it's obviously easier. Well, it's not easier said than done, because it can be done in a moment if I decide that I want to make the change. Yeah.
I think you've gone as far as you can with the way you've been doing it. Like there's a mental knowing that you have. Like you get it academically.
Yeah.
How do you embody that?
I'm not sure, because I know that my biggest weakness is that I still deeply care about what other people think about me.
My biggest weakness has been.
My biggest weakness has been that I deeply care about what other people think about me. And it has a direct correlation to how I might act and do things.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's the self-betrayal piece, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're turning into Gumby so you can be what everybody else wants and needs you to be.
Yeah.
What connects on social media or anything else?
When people are being authentically themselves.
Authentic, right.
Yeah.
So we know where the traction problem is now.
Yeah.
If I gave you a megaphone moment right now and you could say anything with no consequence, what would it be?
At this exact moment, vote for Robert F. Kennedy.
Okay. Would you put that on your social media?
I did a video recently about that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, this is hard for me too, just being vulnerable like this and talking about this, because it's like also just like admitting that I care so much about what other people think, when many times the stuff that I'm putting out there is telling other people not to care about what other people think. So this is almost like me, like portraying one thing, but not really feeling it or believing it in my bones, because there are moments when I do feel it in my bones. And
what was the last thing you held back that you would have said, but you were afraid that you would get some hate mail or whatever?
Talking about certain topics that I can't really talk about on here for specific reasons.
Well, can't means won't, but okay.
Yeah, can't means won't. Yeah.
All right.
I guess, but I haven't gotten any hate mail particularly about anything. So,
Right. Well, you haven't said anything hateable, have you?
Yeah, I haven't said anything hateable. And maybe that's also part of it, is not having a full opinion about stuff because I'm worried about other people think.
I mean, it's pretty easy to see what's happening, right? I mean, you've kind of turned yourself into vanilla ice cream, right? Like there's just nothing interesting or polarizing, or, if you look at some of the thought leaders out there,
Yeah.
Not one of them that is notable everybody likes, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't be liked by everybody. You're not even real at that point, right?
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson's going to be very polarizing.
Yeah.
You know, he's got his opinion, you know, Matthew Hussey or Alison Armstrong or whoever, right? What do you need to do to start to open the door for yourself a little bit? Like where would be potentially, without making any commitments here, where might be a place where you could show up with authenticity that doesn't really put you at any real risk?
I'm not sure. Or it wouldn't put me at any real risk. I mean, just with my friends and family.
Okay, what's an example?
I guess that's what
Again, without making any commitments.
Yeah, well,
right?
that's what I was just trying to think about, is just being fully authentically myself in regards to conversation and opinions with my
Okay,
friends.
who was the last person you were inauthentic with? When was it?
Look,
and it doesn't have to be a big deal. When was the last time you were a no, but you said yes? When was the last time you had lunch with somebody that you didn't want to? When was the last time you went into self-betrayal?
I can't think of it off the top of my head. Probably maybe in a relationship where I was dating someone.
Yeah, I have no experience with that.
Yeah, just where you say one thing but mean something else.
Being authentic in relationship has probably been one of the biggest challenges in my life. You know, hence 2 divorces and the shit show of, you know, relationship of history that I have, right?
Yeah.
Humans, in my experience, are beautifully ironic, which is why there's so much literature surrounding, you know, Oedipus Rex and, you know, go back in history, right? And it's fascinating to me how often we create the thing we're trying to avoid by trying to avoid it.
One more time?
It is amazing to me how often we create the thing that we are trying to avoid by trying to avoid it. I'm not going to tell her this because she might leave me. And that's the exact reason that she goes, right? It's right.
Yeah.
I have done more damage in my life and in my relationships by being inauthentically good had I just been authentically shitty.
Yeah. Just being the authentic
way more damage.
Version of yourself. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the feeling and the emotion of when you're fully embodying just being the truest version of yourself, there's no greater feeling.
When I'm embodying the truest myself, own your language there.
When I'm embodying the fullest version and truest version of who I am, nothing feels better than that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it starts with like everything, the way you act, the way you talk, the way you interact with people. Mm-hmm. It's embodying that full integrity at every moment of every day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I'm not being in integrity with myself, that's a disease, which leads to disease. And so it like makes me feel out of whack. Mm-hmm. And so like you've discussed, it's like I'm very hyper aware of when I'm doing things and when it's not in alignment. And I guess I just need to make a commitment to myself that it is better to be in full alignment. And even if it might feel uncomfortable, not disease, but like just uncomfortable, where it's okay if I offend someone, or it's okay if they don't agree with me, and this because this is me being in full integrity with myself, then I need to be okay with allowing that no matter what that looks like.
Truth and authenticity, these they're kind of one and the same in this context, and it's a lot of things. You know, I'll tell clients, like, truth is speed. Like the more honest you are, the faster we can get there.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's a romantic partnership or a goal for your business, like just tell me what it is you really want.
Yeah.
You know, because we can get there a lot faster. My woo-woo friends will also say things like truth is kindness. Right? If somebody is romantically interested in you, you're not interested in them. It's like, well, I don't want to hurt this person. But the kind thing to do is tell them thanks, but no thanks, right?
Yeah. The kindest thing they can do is reject them, because that's being honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Truth is also a filter.
Yeah.
It's a natural filter of that which is not for you.
Yeah. You know, when I'm just like reflecting on this, because the stuff that I am posting, I feel like is me being truthful and being authentic, but it's the reaction that I'm creating, what you described before, which is the dependency, which is what I feel I need to work through. Because I feel like what I am putting out is authentically and very, very like true to what I believe, but it's the reaction to whether it's received well or not, which is what I need
because
to work
you're not
through.
doing it on the right frequency.
Got it.
Here's the problem. It's hang on.
I think I understood kind of what you said, where it's like, because
it's riding on the wrong frequency. There's an alignment problem, right? You can do the right thing if you're doing it from the wrong motivator, from the wrong driver. When I say wrong, by the way, I don't mean in the case of judgment. I mean misaligned.
No,
okay?
I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. So, So that's not going to work,
No.
right? I might do the right thing, but if it's coming from the wrong place,
Yeah.
the frequency is off. There's a mismatch.
Yeah.
See, everything is energy. I talk a lot about energy and frequencies. Everything is energy. Even the table here, this is just compressed energy.
Yeah.
That's what matter is. And energy has a frequency. And when the frequency doesn't match, things don't work. I can be wrong about dates or data or information or even what's motivating somebody. I'm never wrong about frequency.
No.
I'm just not.
No.
And so when a client calls me and tells me, oh yeah, this and that and the other, I'm like, who is this? Something's off. And the universe just operates that way. So if you're doing something that's off like that, chances of it working are pretty slim.
No, and I think you're absolutely correct. Because when I came back from my trip, I was feeling great. I was actually in a really good mind space. I was not worried about what other people think. I was being authentic myself. And we posted a couple posts. And the first 3 posts actually went like semi-viral. And then after that, once I got like that feeling, then it became like, oh shit, I hope this happens on every one of them, and becoming once again dependent on it. And even when you're speaking now, I can feel that energetically I've been like negative about my stuff being posted out because I have not been getting the reception and the likes that I want. And you're absolutely correct. It's like I'm putting that energy out there. And of course people can like feel that even though it's not a direct like conversation with them, but everything is energy. And I believe that very wholeheartly deep in my soul. And so when you talk about that, it really correlates to like my beliefs. And you're right. I'm probably putting up the blockages to my own things in many different ways. And because of what you're describing, I'm like depending on it to like bring me validation instead of it just being authentically what I want to share with people. And maybe it's even like I need to maybe take a moment and just step back and like just do things that only feel authentic so that I know that what's being put out is on the right frequency. And not so much like what I'm doing now, which is just posting a lot to like be in front of people's faces, even though once again, I believe that it was good, but it's not coming from the most authentic place. And so yeah, as we're talking through this, I feel all these things in my bones, and you're hitting it on the nose. And I believe that part of it is, or if not all of it, is this energetic block that I'm creating myself by the way that I'm putting it out.
Yeah, there are a few things going on. I mean, first of all, this is not, and I don't deal in a world of fault, right?
Yeah.
Fault involves blame, involves victim consciousness. I don't do any of that stuff. So there is a natural tendency to care what other people think. It's in our biology, right?
Yeah.
Because way back when, if people didn't like you, you got kicked out of the village, kind of thing. You're gonna get eaten by a bear or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a survival mechanism. The desire to be liked is a natural desire.
Yeah, you want to be part of the tribe. This is something I
part of the tribe, right?
Yeah, I literally heard this in a podcast the other day. I 100% agree with you. It's like primal. It's like down to the core. We want to fit in, but like also it's like wanting to fit in, but not like doing it at the detriment of you not being in full integrity with yourself.
Right. Well, there's that, and this is very layered for you. So you have the first thing is just your biology that wants to be liked and needs to be liked. Then you've got the mother wound. Yeah. Right. Where there's clearly, there's like call it an abandonment anxiety or whatever, or the lack of love. The child was not cared for in the way that a child needs in order to be supported. Then we've got a cocaine problem. You get really juiced when you get those likes, and it's like, and you get massive dopamine dump, which is like cocaine. Yeah. And so now we got a coke problem, right? So this is a very layered thing for you. Yeah. And you said something earlier that you can leverage. I'm in the business of leverage. How do we make this work for us, right? Yeah. You said there's nothing like that authenticity. Yeah. Right? So if you can be in that space and be so connected to that feels so good, it trumps the coke, it trumps the biology, and it potentially trumps the mother wound.
Yeah, it does. And
you can get there. I mean,
I've definitely felt times and moments and like even spurts of time where like I feel in complete alignment. I'm like everything from the way I wake up to when I'm going to bed, just everything that day feels in full alignment. And even as I'm like talking about this now, maybe like part of like the issue that I've been like feeling lately is I haven't been making time for myself. I've been like so busy with like work and I don't even like the word busy, but I've been occupying myself with like things for others and serving others and doing what needs to be done, but not doing what needs to be done for myself. Like,
see, if you're not loving you, why would I? Yeah. Or anybody else. Yeah. We don't teach people how to treat us by what we tell them. Yeah. We teach them by how we treat ourselves.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
like even like a simple example, like I started learning how to play violin recently
Nice.
and I stopped because I couldn't make time for myself to practice.
Why
But
don't
that,
you just say what's really going on here?
yeah.
I don't love myself enough to do it.
Yeah. I don't love myself enough to do it. That's
Right.
exactly correct. Yeah.
Okay, so you can change that, right?
I can change that. Yeah.
You can say, hey, it's like the responsibility sort of, I mean, it sort of sucks, right? And I I joke about this because it's not quote unquote fair. And nobody north of about age 8 should really use that word because
Yeah.
that's the speech of a 7, 8-year-old. It's not fair,
Yeah.
It's a CEO. That's not fair. I'm like, what are you, 7?
Yeah.
I've said that.
It feels not
So
fair though.
Right, but
Yeah.
but remember, fair is a construct.
Yeah. 100%.
You're an attorney, right?
Yeah,
You're a
I mean,
PI attorney. You go to court.
yeah, fair is
Somebody
also,
wins, somebody loses.
Yeah. Fair is also objective, right?
It's totally
Or subjective.
subjective.
Yeah, subjective,
Right?
yeah.
You have the exact same details. You go to that courtroom, you have the exact same details unfold.
Yeah.
One person wins, one person loses. One says it's fair, one says it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's a subjective construct.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Fair is the same thing as good or bad, right? Hamlet, for nothing is either good nor bad. Thinking makes it so.
Yeah.
If we like it, it's good. If we don't like it, it's bad.
Yeah.
Right? It just is, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is bad. Nothing is good. Nothing is offensive. Nothing is funny. Nothing is beautiful.
Yeah.
I see it this way.
It's how
That's
you
my
perceive it,
lens.
yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so your opportunity, while it's not fair, is to essentially parent yourself, that inner little guy that did not get the needs met, by healthy parenting, that was not loved, that was not cared for, that was not seen. That's actually really a core wound of mine. It's the seen wound, like
Yeah.
see me, right?
Yeah.
Because when somebody misunderstands me, when somebody like that really hits a trigger for me.
Yeah.
So your opportunity is to start seeing you
Yeah.
and to honor that and to create space for that, right? The same way maybe your mother didn't create space for what you needed. Well,
Yeah.
your responsibility is to create the space for what you need, whether it's the violin or working out or, but really caring enough about yourself to
Yeah.
put yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess I'll make a commitment to myself to start adding those things back into my life, starting this
It's more than a commitment. It's commitment is very heady for me. It's a choice, right? Like I'm choosing to be committed to something. What we're talking about here is devotion. And that for me is a different thing. It even when I say it just rides on a different frequency.
It feels different in my
Right? You
body
just
when
feel
you say
that?
devotion. Yeah, because it's like I'm being devoted to
I wasn't
myself.
committed to my radio career. I
Yeah.
was devoted. I was like on my knees. I will
Yeah.
die for you. I will live for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I told you what I did to get that career, you'd be like, that's dumb. And it was dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, sleeping 4 hours a night in 2-hour shifts with a sleeping bag in my car and rolling it out on the conference room table so I can get an extra hour of sleep before I have to drive to the other radio station, right? I mean, it was nuts.
Yeah.
And it was dangerous. I mean, they were
For
like
sure.
falling asleep on the freeway
Yeah.
dangerous, like really not smart.
But you were
But
completely
that's
devoted.
devoted,
Yeah.
right? I mean, when you think about, somebody right now is thinking about like a romantic partner that they are just completely devoted to.
Yeah.
They will quit their job. They will move to wherever. They will do when just on your knees kind of devotion. When you connect with that level of love for yourself, because you are the foundation of everything in your life. So
Yeah.
it sort of has to come first, right?
Yeah.
That's a game changer for you. It
Yeah.
changes every relationship. Your relationship to everyone and everything in this world is derived from your relationship to you.
Yeah. And I've not been devoted to myself at all.
And it is reflecting to you, like this social media thing is reflecting to you your dependency, your abandonment of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting it on the spot in many different ways.
I'm only right if you feel it. Like,
Yeah,
it's
feel
not
it.
my job to be right. Actually, I'm usually right.
No. Yeah.
It's not my job to be right. It's my
Yeah.
job to be disruptive. It's my job to
Yeah.
hold up the mirror and say, is this what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking to, and like, I'm almost like hesitant to like even talk about this out loud. It's like, when I hear about your level of devotion to the radio, like, I don't know if I've had that level of devotion to many things in my life, or if anything.
Oh, I haven't either. I
Yeah.
mean, I can count on one hand how many things that I would just have bled like that for.
Yeah, I mean, like the closest thing that I really, really enjoy and that I would say I'm devoted to is I really love these podcasts, and these things kind of light me up in a special way. And it's really me being able to like learn about myself, learn about other people in front of me. And this is my favorite thing that I'm doing right now. But even this, I don't know if I would be sleeping under a couch to like do it, right? It's like, I'm just like hearing that level of devotion. A couple of emotions come to me. It's like jealousy and like almost like wishing that I found something in my life that did make me want to be that devoted. You know, I love my business and
You want to find it? Be it.
I guess
You
what does that
attract
mean?
what you are.
Yeah. So I guess when you say find it, be it, like how do I be it if I haven't found, I guess just be devoted to myself.
Start there, right?
Start there.
I mean, I think I'm not a biological parent. I have a lot of
Yeah.
kids in my life, and I've kind of inherited a couple through a previous relationship. But I can only imagine looking at your newborn baby in the eye for the first time,
Yeah.
and I like everybody says that's everything changes in that moment. I can only imagine what that's like.
Yeah. Same.
And I interpret it, through my framework is like that's a level of devotion that I think I understand. I mean, if I'm not too arrogant to,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm not a biological parent, but I think that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Just being fully devoted to anything. Even, I mean, yourself is what you should be fully devoted to first and then go from there.
Well,
Everything else will benefit from that full devotion to yourself.
that's where it starts.
Yeah.
There's actually something beyond that. Once you achieve that level of connection with the self, in my experience, the thing that is coming through you begins to be revealed.
And then you can devote yourself to others.
Well, you can devote yourself to that. Like, how do I frame this? This is where I get really woo.
I love
sort of
Woowoo, so
straddle
don't
the
worry
line
about it.
between
Yeah.
the world of engineer. My old man's an electromagnetic compatibility engineer.
Yeah.
And then there's the woo thing, right?
Yeah.
So, in my framework, like
Yeah.
your life has some kind of mission, purpose, whatever. The framework that I use is, you're not a person that has a soul, and you're not even necessarily. I don't think you're a soul having a human experience. I think you're a soul having a spiritual experience on the physical end of the energetic spectrum as a human. And there's a reason for this. So whatever that reason, call it purpose, call it mission, your life's, your dharma, whatever, that thing that is trying to come through you, be lived, be expressed, be accomplished through you as you, that is what you're ultimately devoted to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with
It's just
that.
bigger than you. Because when you play at that level, all the little human stories like I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, get real small real quick when you realize the magnitude of what's coming through. When you play at that level, you can't afford things like that. I say, your clients that work with me, I said, there are certain luxuries you can't afford. You can't afford I'm not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't play. It's not aligned.
Got it.
And it's not true, right?
No, it's not true.
Because that's why you're here. That of course you're worthy or whatever.
Yeah, and that's my own dialogue.
Right.
Yeah, and no one's implementing it but myself. Yeah.
So how do you connect with that little guy that didn't get what he needed, to see him, acknowledge him, celebrate him,
Yeah.
so that you can connect with you, so you can open the door, the gate to the thing, whatever it is.
Yeah. Got it.
And it's a practice.
And it is a practice.
It is probably a daily practice. Really.
Yeah. 100%, or what they call a sadhana, right? Like whatever my daily practices are. And yeah, for me, I did have, when I was traveling around the world, I did have my daily practices. I got up, stretched. I did, I did a little bit of reading in the morning, a little bit of journaling in the morning. I listened to a certain playlist, got my day with a little bit of dancing. And then, I would, every single day when I was traveling the world, I would always do something for myself. I'd go to a nice restaurant. I'd go to a museum. I would go see something that I've always wanted to see. And it was like, I was literally living like the embodied version of what I thought was like the ideal life.
Right.
And I felt amazing. And I was in complete alignment with like everything I was doing, the people I was meeting. And then, I get home. And since I've been home, like I'm working like, crazy hour days from the moment I wake up, from the moment I go to bed. I'm barely doing my stretching in the morning. I'm not reading, I'm not journaling. And like, these are all things that like fill my soul and make me feel better. And so, as I'm talking this out loud, I know what the issues are. I've almost like ignored them. And it's because instead of like addressing the first little issue when it came up, I've now let them compound into like falling back into my old patterns of how I used to live my life. And as I'm falling back into these patterns of comfortability, I'm like yeah, I'm now back in the same emotional almost status that I was before I left on my trip. Not
Mhm.
fully, because I'm a different human being, because I'm hyper aware.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad that I'm aware and I'm at this point that I can have this conversation. But
Mhm.
even though I'm aware, I've not been making the changes that I need to make.
I remember when I ran into you at a meeting and I was like, "Wow, where have you been?" And you told me like what you had done, how
Yeah.
you structured your life and achieved what so many people would say there's no way I could do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy's a ninja. Like this is a
Yeah.
whole different cat right here.
Yeah.
Like you in that moment were embodying a lot, like you were the living embodiment of a lot of the stuff that I train my clients in. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, actually you can do that. You know,
Yeah.
you all these limited interpretations of reality. Reality is the end result of a system, and any system can be hacked if you understand that system well enough.
Yeah.
And you did that.
Yeah.
And you came back
Yeah.
and you like physically looked different. Like you were just you're
Yeah.
a different human, right?
Yeah.
Just everything in your eyes was like completely different. And I
Yeah.
think you even said something like, "This is a game changer."
Yeah.
And if you can bring yourself back to that level of possibility, that level of adoration, and to the point where you're willing to make, you know, what we would call a self-honoring choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a template for it now, so it's not. I don't think
No.
it's going to be hard for you, frankly.
No, I don't think it's gonna be hard for me either. And like as I'm speaking to you, like I feel hope welling up within my heart right now. It's like,
Mhm.
dude, this is all stuff that I
I
fucking
can see
know.
you're holding it back though. I can see you.
Yeah, it's
Let it
like,
come. Just let it come.
yeah.
There it is.
What do you mean?
Just
Yeah,
bring it up.
yeah. I mean, like I just like feel it in my heart, and it's just like
Mhm.
I don't know how to explain it. It's like I know that like what I need to do, and I've been like you said when you said that comment about like I hate myself so much that I'm not making time for myself. It's like
Mhm.
it's painful.
Mhm.
It's like because it's like that's
Stop
literally.
talking. Come on. It's right there. It's right there.
I mean,
I know you're thinking the cameras.
I mean,
This is your authenticity. Stop talking. Bring it up. Stop it.
I mean, it's just like a lot of stuff is hard. Some,
Take a breath. Just take a breath. We'll come back in a minute. Take a breath.
it's just, it is. I need to learn to be easier on myself,
Mm-hmm.
and a big part of it is like what you made a comment earlier. It's like I don't even know what I'm chasing. I don't even know what I'm seeking. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Like, what am I being so hard on myself every day? Like, why am I waking up with so much pressure to like prove myself to others? And like when really I like have this amazing life where like if I wanted to live and feel the way that I wanted to, I can at any moment.
Yeah, because you're trying to fill an empty hole, like an abyss of a hole with things that don't work, that doesn't fill it. Look, the validation that you've been seeking is it's like a form of the insecurity monster. You ever date a massively insecure person?
Yes.
They ever want reassurance from you?
Every day.
You ever
every
give it
moment.
to them?
Yeah.
What happens then?
They depend on it.
They want more.
Yeah.
Give me more of my cocaine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the same is true with the validation thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That insecurity thing is an insatiable beast. The only way that I know of to get rid of it is to starve it. To cut the dependency on it.
Yeah.
And to fill that hole from within, not from out there.
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind when we're talking about this is when I was reading the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, where he talks about like,
Yeah, follow the Stoics, man.
yeah, he's just like, why are you wanting to be famous? The people that make you famous are not exactly the most intelligent or the most relevant people. Like you're wanting the validation from those that are, you know, just like you're looking for validation in other places. Where you should find the validation, where you'll find the greatest alignment is living in like the most rational and true version of yourself.
Mhm.
And as you like live in accordance with the values of the Stoics, or like the things that are true in basically correlation to being in harmony with nature and being in harmony with what is right and what is good, that's what's going to give you the best feeling. And that's going to be greater than any validation you'll receive from being famous.
Mhm.
And when I did the silent meditation retreat in India, I like came to terms with that. And I was like, you know what? He's absolutely right. Like there's no greater feeling than when I'm just being in alignment with myself and not actually caring about what other people talk about. And like, I listen to Gary Vee like every fucking day. And like, I see this guy and I'm like, I want to feel like how he feels and like be in alignment and like the things that he says. And like, I can just feel it coming off of him. And like, I want that for myself. And like, I want it so bad. I like almost like go the opposite way. And like, I'm just sick of feeling the way that I do every day. It's just fucking like painful. Like I'm just like sick of it. Like it's exhausting. Like, I'm just exhausting myself going through the process of just like wanting validation from others. And like, instead of just like getting it from my own heart. And like, it's like I'm constantly just living in this state of fucking stress and anxiety. And I'm like putting myself through it every single day when there's no reason to. Like who am I trying to prove to what? I don't know anything to anybody.
So stop it.
Yeah. Stop it. I know.
Just grossly oversimplify it.
But that's the thing about a lot of this woo-woo stuff, right? And you know, you could call it woo-woo, but I call this just like, you know, people use the term being conscious, right? But what does consciousness means? Just means being aware, right? And you're just aware of things that a lot of people, they're just not able to simplify it, because at the end of the day, it is simple. And like, you know, what I've like come to the conclusion through my own reflections and meditations is like, at the end of the day, I just want to be happy and I just want to feel loved. And what are those things? And I know the shit that I'm doing now is not making me feel happy and it's not making me feel loved.
Well, how could it? It's not true.
No.
Right? It's not the truth.
No.
Right? You want to feel love, feel truth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'm breaking all the things that I already know are true. And I'm just sad for myself. It's just like, why am I putting myself through this shit?
Well, I mean, look, you know, the why question is very heady, right?
Yeah.
And it's very analytical and it jumps us into our head, and it's kind of the wrong tool for the job. Like I tell clients, look, I'll dig around in your childhood if I have to, but if we can skip that part, then this will go a lot faster.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need to know the why. It's like, all right, fine, we'll do that. But ultimately, we're still gonna kind of relate to it with a future orientation. Like, does it really matter why? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't think it does really. But so
I think it's good to understand it. And then once you understand it, it's now time to like integrate and to make it a reality. You don't have to stay there. Because I've also noticed too, as I stay in that headspace, I like almost get myself stuck there.
Right.
Because then I keep telling myself those stories over and over again.
Right.
And those are wounds that I've already healed. And now I'm ripping them open when I could just be in my truth.
Right.
But I'm choosing to go back to my lies.
Well, it's an old identity, right? And what's affecting you now isn't what happened back then. What's affecting you now is how you're holding it in your consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, it's how you're relating to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, instead of maybe, you know, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? It's what are you feeling when you're doing that? You know, like like asking the questions, how does that feel? What does this do for me? What does this do to me? I mean, it's putting it more in the present.
Are you asking how I feel when I'm making the wrong decisions?
Well, I mean, just as a tool here, right?
Yeah.
It's like, instead of asking yourself, why do I keep doing this? Well, because you're going to make 38,000 decisions today. How many of those you think you're going to be aware of?
Yeah.
Right. That's why today is the same, pretty much the same as yesterday, and it'll be the same tomorrow, because we're making like tens of thousands of decisions that we're not conscious of.
Yeah.
And we're just on the repeat cycle. So when you start tuning into, like, your mind is just one part of your human system, right? And the mind, the experience is not here to serve the mind. The mind is here to serve the experience. And so when you start connecting with how this feels, what am I experiencing, as opposed to why do I do this, then it changes the orientation.
Yeah. I mean, even when we're talking about this and I'm reflecting on how I felt going through all this, I just feel super anxious. I mean, like, even when we've been talking now, my chest was shaking at parts while we've been like talking here, and just like recognizing like that emotion. And it's just like, you know, even like something that like has been hard for me recently is like I vape, right? And so like I've noticed like a big part of it is like I go to it when I'm anxious,
right?
And just paying attention to how
soothing.
Yeah, I've been paying attention to how anxious I've been lately, and it's like I see it, I feel it, but I've not been making the changes. And this conversation obviously was needed in a very deep way. And so I'm very happy that you're here. Thank you so much for coming and being here with me, and also helping me talk through this. This has been a great reflection. And yeah.
It's my pleasure to be here, and check in with me in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when we start operating at that level, the dust doesn't always settle right away. And so it might, over the next 48 hours, something might come up. So if you need some support, if something comes forward, if something really cool happens, let me know.
Yeah, of course, 100%. And the word that's going to be revolving in my mind is going to be devotion. And just like, because I've never heard that, it's like, it's just different. It feels better. It's like just wanting to be devoted to myself. And, it's starting there. And like you said, it will trickle down to everything else. And a lot of stuff that you discussed too is like, I've always felt too that we're souls in a meat suit having a human experience, right? But our souls are here, and even this body has a mind of its own sometimes, right? Your body does stuff on its own because we're almost like, for lack of a better term, like parasites in a sense. Like we're inside of this body and we're controlling it, but at the same time, this body is its own human being, and we're just the soul within it. Yeah, it's super interesting because I definitely felt that way in many ways too. Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah. How did you start going down your woo-woo journey, for lack of a better term?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess I've always been on it. I guess it started with my old man. It started with my childhood and kind of how that all unfolded. Like I said, my dad, he's a systems engineer, and so growing up, we'd talk. Kids would be talking baseball. My father, who's like anti-sports, we'd be talking string theory and quantum mechanics and subatomic physics or whatever, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but it certainly planted a lot of seeds.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the more I started seeing, the more my world started to unfold, and I started to kind of understand the construction of it. I could see the patterns.
Yeah.
I'm scary good with pattern recognition. I can see how things are like other things. I can see how, the school system is like this or this system is like that. And so I can sort of connect the dots. And that just allows me to figure shit out, basically. I figured out how to do Gestalt therapy when I was about 8 years old. I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah. But it was like, I need to solve a problem here. And it's basically facilitating a conversation with myself. Take the problem outside of me, have a conversation with myself. Literally as an 8-year-old, I was talking to myself. Maybe I was 7, but I don't know. It was early. Fast forward, now that's basically Gestalt therapy. I'm like, oh, all right, well, cool. I just figured that shit out.
Yeah, how interesting. I didn't know. I've never heard the term Gestalt therapy.
Yeah,
so that's good to learn. Yeah, and even too when you're talking about your dad with, like you said, quantum physics and stuff like that, right? I saw
he's an uber nerd.
Yeah, but I saw this post yesterday on social media where it was like, some people will, like witches will call it spells, the Christians will call it prayer. And then the nerds will call it quantum physics, but all of it's just energy
it's all the same, right?
Yeah. And everybody might say that everybody else is a liar, but nobody denies its existence. And even the atheists might call it manifestation, but these are all the same things that we're describing, just in different ways. And yeah, I mean, as I've gone further down my journey, I believe more and more that all of energy and all of your intentions, like every moment of every day, when you have a thought or when you have a feeling or when you have a belief, you're going to move everything in the universe because it has to move to give you what your belief is, or it has to move to be able to bring into your life what you're calling in.
Yeah. When somebody says prayer, they define that as talking to God.
Yeah.
I'll define that as focused attention.
Yeah.
And when you put your attention on something, you affect that thing.
Yeah.
Even just in terms of physics, the act of looking at this table has a physical effect on the table. We can measure it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, reality is malleable.
Yeah. 100%. Cool. A lot to basically take in, and a lot of stuff that I'm also just like thinking about stuff that I want to start doing when I get home. And start planning out to being devoted to myself. So my mind's a little bit there at this moment too. But this is good. This is exactly the conversation that I think I needed, in the sense of like, it's great for you to have knowledge and it's great for you to understand things, but if you're not actually implementing it and using it in your life, what's the point of having it, right? Like I always talk to my team, because I lead a couple of book clubs with several friends and with my like law firm specifically. And I always tell people, like, when you're learning something, that's fantastic, but are you learning it just for the sake of forgetting it? or
Right.
just not using it ever again.
Mhm.
Every single time I listen to something or I read something or I watch something, I have a note on my phone and I immediately am like, how can I apply this in my life?
Mhm.
How can I make this a change at this exact moment? And it's something that I learned from listening to a lot of Jim Quick stuff.
Mhm.
And Jim Quick really just like got that in my head. He's like, well, it's great that you know it, but how can you use it?
Right.
And that's like the number one thing. So I really try to like focus on learning things that I know I can apply in my life because I think that's the most important stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The school system, unfortunately, just focuses on knowing stuff
Yeah.
and only knowing it temporarily. Because as soon as the test is over,
Yeah.
gone, right? So
Yeah.
it really is about, practical application. And even as you think about this for your own life and what you do moving forward, you don't need to make big sweeping changes. You need to make very small changes consistently,
Yeah.
because that just changes physiologically how the brain works. And
Yeah.
that's going to change ultimately, because once you learn something over here, the brain is super lazy. So
Yeah.
if it learns it over here, it applies it everywhere it possibly can.
Yeah.
And so when you change it here, you change it everywhere, wherever that pattern, wherever that dynamic is playing out. And so, but the key is consistency. Consistency. You got to do it consistent.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I posted something about this recently where the people who make the most changes are the people that make the most micro changes on a regular basis.
Mhm.
It's not about making huge changes. And like for me, I'm just thinking about the little things. I need to be gentle with myself. I don't need to go back to the person I was, like 6 months, a year ago when I was fully like in alignment.
Mhm.
I just need to start reintroducing all the things that did make me feel in alignment a little bit at a time and be gentle throughout the process because I'm not a
Mhm.
very gentle person with myself. The negative
Have not
self-talk.
been.
I have not been a very
No,
gentle.
I do that, right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm 100%. 100%. No, and I love that you do that because I do the same thing with friends.
Right.
Whenever somebody says I can't or I won't
Mhm.
or I shouldn't, and I feel like I'm pretty decent with my language, but
Mhm.
sometimes I do slip, and I appreciate the correction because I love helping other people with their language too because the quality of your words will determine the quality of your life,
Right.
and the words you say become your reality. Just like what we described before, if you pray, your words literally are like spells, you weave them into the world. And especially when you're casting spells on yourself, there's no greater blessing or no greater curse,
Mhm.
especially if they're coming from a place of like where you actually feel it.
Yeah, where you have a lot of energy. I mean, you've heard the term abracadabra.
Yeah.
That's a real word. It's derived from Aramaic, and it means I create as I speak, or it will be created in my words.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're going to create the reality of your understanding. That's just the way humans work.
Yeah.
And we do this we can look at this through the Bannister principle, right? The first guy that ran a sub 4 minute mile, and nobody had ever ran a mile in under 4 minutes. And then it was May of 1954, this guy Roger Bannister does it, and after decades of people trying to do it, his record lasted 46 days.
Yeah.
Right? Because wait, what just happened?
It's a new paradigm.
Conscious belief,
Yeah.
collective understanding of what's possible
Yeah.
shifted.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, 2,000 people have done it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's something wild, but it's true. It's just until you believe it can be done, most of the time, you're not even going to try it or attempt to go that far.
See, that's the thing,
Yeah.
I mean, there's two things that I say, because people ask me, how did you do the ice hockey thing? How did you do the radio
Yeah.
thing? How did you do these things? I said, well, there are two things. I was dumb enough to believe it was true,
Mm.
that I could, and I have a lot of fuck you in me. Or, one of my favorite tools is I don't care.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is somebody says, with the radio thing, it's like, well, you're never going to get that job. I don't care. Well, but you're nobody's ever going to hire. You're never going to be in a major market. I don't care. You're never going to make any real money. I don't care.
Yeah.
But that's the devotion piece, right?
Yeah.
When you're so devoted to something, you don't care about all of the logical, practical reasons why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
It feels like, call it a moral imperative.
Yeah.
I don't care that I can't. I don't care that it won't work. I don't care that it's going to kill me.
Yeah. But if it just is right, that's all that matters.
Right?
Yeah.
We spend so much time, focused. Our society is obsessed with saving lives. And I'm like, first of all, there's no such thing. All you're doing is delaying death. And if you are delaying it, what are you delaying it for? If you're not going full throttle, I love to cite the online dating community, because I cannot tell you in my history of dating how many profiles will say things like, I'm living life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Really? I kind of doubt it.
I think I put that on mine, which is even fucking funnier.
I'm living life to the fullest. Not if you're on this fucking site, you're not. I'll tell you who was living life to the fullest. Johnny Strange. Johnny Strange was living life to the fullest. This kid, he had summited all the highest peaks on every continent by the time he was like 17 years old. He was a base jumper. He was a skydiver. He was a wingsuit dude. He was living life. He died in a wingsuit accident at the age of 23. And everybody said, what a tragedy.
Yeah.
And, and I remember when Dan Weldon, IndyCar racer, got killed at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, left behind a wife and 2 young kids. I remember when Jeff Krosnoff got killed.
But they lived life.
They were full throttle, right?
Yeah.
They were living it. And I'm like, these people lived more in their X number of years. Johnny Strange, 23 years old. He lived more in 23 years than we're going to live in 80, 90, 123.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they say, what's a tragedy? What's more tragic? Dying young, doing what feels like the whole reason you were born, even the whole reason you were thought of.
Yeah.
Or some shitty, long disease battle with cancer or something, I mean, my sister died of cancer. That it's a shitty way to go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she was 11 years old and but she lived her life, even at that age.
Yeah.
She was too young not to, I guess, but.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I feel the same way. And part of the reason that I went on that journey is like,
right.
I have all these things I want to fucking do.
Right.
I'm going to go do them. And then I literally spent 6-7 months traveling the world doing exactly what I wanted to do. And, it's funny too. I was having a conversation with somebody about death the other day. And I was like, I think if I died, I could happily greet God and be like, I did the damn thing. I had a good time. I really did the things I wanted to and experienced the stuff that I really wanted to do and wouldn't really have any regrets. But I don't think that most people get to that point in their life. And like you said, most of them, it's a drawn out, painful journey to their death because they put themselves in disease most of their life, which led to disease.
Right.
Yeah.
I imagine, dying and, what would my first words be to God? Something like, oops. Whoops. That's what I hope, right?
Or that was awesome.
Right? It's like, well, I guess that didn't quite work. I mean, look, it's like, I don't invite death. I'm not, I'm not afraid of it. At the same time, I believe that if you're really living your life, you're not going to be so afraid to die.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I tell you what, Joe, I believe, I can't know this. I believe that anybody laying on their deathbed can think back to all the times they thought that they weren't good enough or they didn't and be like, oh God, what a stupid, but and every year there's the top 5 regrets of the dying and they're just like the same every year. I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I did this. What was the one that I wish, it's like, I wish I had the courage to be me, like to really be me.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I've heard that list before.
Right.
Yeah. And it's the same things over and over again. But I mean, when you hear them, they also hit home. Do you know what they are? All 5 of them?
I don't remember now.
I kind of want to just pull them up.
Yeah.
So we can
Top
read
5 regrets of the dying.
Okay.
Nobody ever said, God, I wish I landed that one more client. I don't think that's on the list.
I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expect of me.
Okay, so you can stop right there.
Yeah.
That right there.
Covers pretty much everything, yeah.
And
yeah, and then I wish I hadn't worked so hard. At the end of the day, no one ever is like, I wish I worked more. Right? It's very real. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. That's very real. That's something that I've really worked on the last couple of years, just like you said, not holding it back and not telling people how you feel always causes more damage than just telling them how you feel. Just express yourself. It's going to feel better for you. It's going to feel better for them. Because no matter what, like the way you feel, I promise you that more times than not, the other person feels the same exact way. And the moment you just say it out loud, it just becomes reality and both of you can move on past it. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge one. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends or spent more time with my friends. That's definitely something too.
Are any of these hitting home for you?
A lot of these, yeah. And I wish I had let myself be happier. This one really hits home for me because it's like I can definitely consciously feel that many times in my life. It's like I'm almost choosing to be miserable because I'm not choosing just to let go and relax and just be happy. It's like I've put myself in a state of stress, which I'm the
Mhm.
only one that did it. It's like I'm choosing this way
Right.
of life. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and this just speaks to patterns and addictions, right? There's
Yeah.
something in your body that actually wants that because you grew up on it. So it's like this,
Yeah.
hey, where's that thing that I'm supposed to get, right? And so
Yeah.
you've, in a lot of ways, you've become your mother to you,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, because we get addicted to the negative feeling, right?
Right.
And our body wants the comfort because that's what our neural pathways, it likes consistency.
right.
And breaking the patterns is more difficult than just living in the same way we've been living our entire lives.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we get all Joe Dispenza with the thoughts create the feelings and the feelings create the thoughts. And you get that little sub loop of the belief system in there. And
Yeah. Yeah. Are you a big follower of like Joe Dispenza or Tony Robbins or any
I
of those
like
guys?
Joe. Tony, I'm not a big Tony guy. A lot of the thought leaders, they run the same marketing, and it's morally questionable at best, in my opinion.
Why?
Because and Tony's like an NLP guy. I mean, I'm trained in neuro-linguistic programming. I don't really use it much anymore, but they do these big rah-rah weekends,
Yeah.
like Tony or Brendan or whoever. And like I said, they got great content. But what they're doing is very smart. They take you to their rah-rah weekend in San Diego or wherever they're doing it. It's like, come down for this thing, date with Destiny or whatever.
Yeah. I went to Unleash
did you
the
go
Power
that?
Within.
Okay.
I went to Unleash Power Within Miami.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go. So I've never gone to one of Tony's things, but
Yeah.
I hear it's a great time. But what
It's a lot of
happens
fun, yeah.
is they are flooding you with a massive amount of feel-good neurochemistry. What happens is that this part of your brain is the prefrontal cortex. This is where all your advanced brain functions and the big thinking happens. That part of your brain goes offline. So now I've got you all hopped up on cocaine and your brain is offline. And now I'm going to sell you $20,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Not cool, right? And then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh shit, what did I do, right?
Oh,
so
not
the
cool.
crash happens.
You call it not cool. I call it genius, right?
Right.
It's like-
Right. I mean, it's a brilliant business model.
It's a
right?
brilliant
It
business
works.
model. I mean, like if you're gonna sell somebody something, sell it to them when they're in the optimal mental capacity to want to be receptive to whatever you're selling them. So you're almost
Right.
priming someone to be a perfect candidate for your product. So yeah, I obviously you and I recognize this and we see
Yeah.
it when we're at these conferences. But good for them. And also too, from going to the Tony Robbins stuff, I will say that a lot of the stuff that we talk about, that we've like spoken about, and even the core belief systems, your core values, a lot of the stuff, they do actually help you rewire it and work it.
Yeah.
And I think too, from like going to one of Tony's things, I think a lot of people are very depressed, and Tony's thing is good because it helps kind of get them out of it a bit, or at least give them some positivity in their life. Because a lot of people that I spoke to were in very deep, dark places, and they got to Tony's program. So it's definitely beneficial, but I also hear what you're saying. It's maniacal in a way, for lack of a better term, because they've created this formula to allow themselves to sell people these programs at an indefinite rate for the rest of their lives potentially, and then they get them in on the Tony program. But it has changed people's lives in positive ways.
Oh yeah, I'm not, like I said, he's got good content, and where do we draw the line in terms of, okay, I'm going to be sneaky because that's the way to help you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not a fit for me. My marketing guys, I've hired and fired a lot of marketing people.
Yeah.
And I finally got one that gets it. And I told him, you're not going to put client testimonials on my website, not one. And he's like, why? I'm like, because it speaks to the mind, right? The mind is looking for safety and proof and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look, if I ask somebody, I used to think that when I was 19, way back in the day, when I was like applying for jobs, he's like, well, can we see your, can I have your references? I'm like, no, that's stupid. What do you think they're going to say?
Yeah.
They're going to say I'm amazing. Go, does that change anything? No. The same is true with these client testimonials. Client says, can I see client testimonials? No. What do you think they're going to say? Well, they're going to say you're amazing and awesome. Okay, great. Now you've seen them. Does it make any difference? No.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the mind is looking for safety, and there is nothing safe about the work that I do.
Yeah.
It is an assault on the ego. It is an assault on somebody's constructs and what they think is reality.
Yeah.
But that's how you produce a new one. So from the ego construct, this is not safe. This is scary as fuck.
For sure. People are going to shy away from it, if anything, and be scared. But you could almost just give one of these podcast episodes as a like Yelp review. Be like, you want to see what I do?
I warn people, like people want to be on my podcast. I say, look, you need to go listen to one or two first.
Yeah.
Because you need to know what you're getting into. Because there's actually several podcasts where they called back later, like, please don't air that. It was, because I tell them, I tell anybody that wants to be on my podcast, I say, look, we can delete any or all of it. But the opportunity, much like we did here, it's like, there's an opportunity right here, right now. Don't fuck it up. Like, take the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I tell them, we'll delete the whole podcast. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because you genuinely care about helping people and you don't care.
No, I don't really like people.
Yeah.
People irritate me. They get in my way.
Fuck you too.
I'm serious. People, fuck. Have you been in the world? Here's the thing. I'm not in service to people. And this is kind of the shocking thing and maybe one of the unexpected things about my business.
So do you just feel that you're living out your dharma?
Yes, but it's like, well, what am I in service to, right?
Yeah.
Kind of what I said earlier. I'm not in service to the person. I'm in service to the thing that's trying to be realized through them.
You're in service to the full collective of the universe.
I'm in service to that thing that is trying to come through, and you're in my fucking way. So I need to move the human.
Yeah.
So my annoyance with them is actually very helpful because I don't mind moving them so that it come through.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, does this benefit the person? Absolutely. They get to live this like complete, expression. But I'm in service to that, not the ego.
Yeah, and even when you're saying that, I know you're joking and you're making fun.
Really
you're
not.
actually a really good person.
Oh no, God no!
Get out of here.
I'm not. Why does nobody believe me when I say this? I'm not a good person. I'm really not. I mean, I'm morally questionable, and God, I have some flexibility. We laugh, but it's so true. I swear I can't get people to believe what a shit I am. It's weird. I spent all my life trying to convince people that I was good, and like they didn't believe me. Now I'm trying to tell them the truth, and they don't believe me. I'm like, I'm kind of a shit. Ask any ex-girlfriend. They'll tell you. They'll know. Like most recent, my ex-fiance, she'll tell you what a shit I can be. And she'll be right. But here's the problem with being a good person. Remember what we said earlier about good and bad? Constructs.
Yeah.
Right? Even morality. What is morality? It's this external sort of societal agreed upon idea. Well, I have no fucking interest in being a good man anymore. I have all interest in the world in being a true man.
Yeah. And I mean,
being the authentic man. And that is not going to make me good. That's not going to make me liked a lot. That's going to make me, but it is the filter.
Yeah.
Like, it keeps out that which is not for me.
Yeah, and I guess when you're saying that, something that I believe is like, yes, everybody has their own version of what good and bad is. But what I've come to the conclusion is that all of us, though, have this knowing, I use the term gnosis within ourselves, right, of what is good and what is bad. And that's that feeling and that moment of alignment and being in your truth. Right. And that's something that I can't tell you what that is for you, and I can't tell you what it is for someone else. But what I can say is that each of us have it. And when people are like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or the bad thing, I'm like, no, you know in an instant. And if you don't know in an instant, you're lying to yourself and telling yourself a story so that you can avoid the truth. Right. But you know when you're in alignment and you know when you're in misalignment, and there's no question in your mind. Mm-hmm. And so once again, that is a very subjective thing. Mm-hmm. And that's also okay too, because I also believe that at the core, even though it is subjective, that we do know the difference between good or bad, and people know when they're doing the right or the wrong thing, even though it is a personal definition. It might be a little bit different, but that feeling is the same feeling in each of us.
Right. It's aligned or misaligned.
Yeah.
Right. Is this aligned with the experience I want to have or the outcomes I want to achieve?
Yeah.
Just not good or bad. It's just aligned or misaligned. And even, in the world religions, they talk about heaven and hell as if these are destinations. I'm like, these aren't destinations. These are ways to travel.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, don't cheat on your wife because you might go to hell. It's like, no, don't cheat on your wife because you'll live in hell.
Yeah.
It's a way of living.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, it's funny you say that. I believe the same thing. I don't think there's heaven or hell. This is heaven or hell. Right now is heaven or hell. Right? We live on a planet where we have everything we could ever need and more. You can create your heaven or you can create your hell. It's up to you. You decide it every moment of every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So but no, I'm not a good man.
That's fine.
I mean, look, I've fucked up in.
I'll allow you your subjective belief.
I have fucked up in pretty much every way somebody can.
Yeah.
I mean, I've cheated. I've been cheated on. I've been abused and abusive. I've been like, I'm addicted as fuck. Like I've done it all. I'm surprised I haven't ended up in jail. That I've managed to not do. But pretty much everything else, I mean, and so, if somebody ever, wanted to call into question my character, I'd be, I'd be a terrible witness for myself. Have you ever done drugs? Yeah. Right? You ever cheated on somebody? But I ultimately it does boil down to, this is now kind of what I've learned and what do I choose from here and what do I build and what do I create and what's aligned, and it just gets real simple when I say I'm not interested in being good or moral. I'm interested in being true.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And what I'll say is I struggled a long time. Your past does not define who you are now. And, those things change on a moment by moment basis. So yeah, I feel you on going through all the stuff in the past and going through those ups and downs. But sometimes I feel like the dialogue too can be like, well, that person who I was, is that still who I am today? And getting stuck in those beliefs. But yeah,
I'm not the same person I was even 18 months ago. I mean, it's
seconds
really
ago,
interesting.
right?
Yeah, I guess technically 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Right? It's the changes that have happened over the last year or two have been pretty incredible. Even my business, my business is a completely different thing. I mean, everything is changing subsequently. The brand is changing. Everything, the name is changing. Everything's changing.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you some questions about how did you get to the point that you were living out of your car and like homeless and then starting this for lack of a better term, coaching career or just going down this road. And I just want to hear like how'd you get to that point? Because living out of your car is not an easy point that I feel you just get to. There were probably a lot of sequence of events that led to that. And I just want to hear how you dug yourself out of it.
Yeah. So I was working at a tech company and
What kind of tech?
they're like an IT provider, and I was doing biz dev, and I wasn't there very long, and I think 9 months I got fired. And at the time I was I had this girlfriend, and I had my own apartment. I was living in downtown LA, and we were spending so much time at one of our apartments. It seemed dumb. It was one of those things where let's move in together because it's practical, not because we like love each other or want to be together. It was just practical.
Financially, it made sense.
Yeah, it was a bad idea. So I gave up my apartment, started living with her. I don't remember the sequence. Did I lose the girl or lose the job first? I'm not quite sure. I think I lost the job first. Yeah, I lost the job first. So I got fired from the job, and then soon after she was gone, she broke up with me. So there I was with like no apartment, and I'm like, okay, well, I got my car and I got everything I own in it because I didn't own a lot of stuff anyway. I'm kind of a minimalist. And I had a job offer on the table from this guy that had a commercial real estate brokerage. And because he actually said to me once, God, I wish you worked for me. Well, there I was without a job. So here's the first call I made. Like, hey, bud. So I went down and met with him, and he offered me a job. And he was like, make a lot of money. And as soon as he offered me the job, this vision of my life came through like 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And it's like, well, there I am, making good money, doing well. And I've created a lifestyle that I now need to support. And once again, I'm trapped. I don't do well with trapped. Humans in general don't do well with trapped. And so I thought, well, do I take the job and guarantee myself a safe life, or do I roll the dice and do this crazy wild ass idea and build a company? I said, well, okay, I got, a couple of friends that'll probably let me stay on the couch. My one friend, Taryn, actually, I was over at her house probably, a couple times a week, and her husband and the kids and everything. I mean, they're my best friends. And so they let me crash on the couch and stay at my dad's once in a while. And it was a lot of hustle, man. There were days I didn't eat. I was driving for Uber to try and string together enough, to put enough gas in the car and some food in my stomach. But there were days that it's like all I had was like one of those muffin things, those egg things at the coffee shop. It's like $3 or whatever. It's like, okay, well, that's my food for the next 2 days. So But that's devotion, right?
Yeah.
It's the thing that puts you on your knees. You're like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to do this or it'll kill me. But either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I eventually it caught fire, got my first client, and that started things to roll.
So there's a couple things just like kind of like ask you, like, I guess, you were fully devoted to this, right? And doing that path that you wanted, which was the coaching. But, for someone like me, I guess maybe it's even like thinking out loud, why didn't you just like start with this job? And so you had income and then worked on this at the same time. And so you could have transitioned easier. Then you're not having to be homeless, living out of your car, eating $3 food. I'm just wondering why that wasn't a decision. Cause that's like for me that like this whole podcast and a lot of the side projects that I'm working on right now, I'm not going to quit being a lawyer, but I'm doing them with my spare time while I still have an income. So I guess, why didn't you do something like that?
Because this is a way cooler story.
I agree with you.
No, that's not the answer though.
Yeah.
It turned out that way, right? That was a cooler story. Or he's an idiot. It has to do with your understanding your human system. So the way I look at this is that as a human being, you're an integrated human system. You have your hardware, your software, and your power source, right? Your hardware is your body, your software is your mindset, your brain, your mental framework, and your energy, your power source, call it your soul, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And this integrated system has tolerances. And your tolerances and somebody else's tolerances, my tolerances are not the same. I mean, we have similar tolerances to like temperature and water and, whatever.
Yeah.
But in terms of stress, in terms of mental framework, that has a function of our psychology and our respective upbringings and whatever. Now, some people do exactly like it makes more sense, right? Like, how do I build? I'm gonna stay, get my needs met, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so I can eat, afford the luxuries of life like food, and build the thing on the side. That wasn't going to work for me because my system just needs more pressure. It needs more heat. I need a lot more compression in order to do something. Because if I had the commercial real estate gig, chances are that would probably be all I did, even though I'd sort of kind of maybe do this, but I wouldn't be on fire for it. And the likelihood that I ever really achieved it is very low, just because that's how my system works. I'll be as lazy as somebody will let me. So I just need more heat. Now somebody else, that's out of range for them, right? It's too much stress. It's too much threat response, or maybe it's just not practical. They got kids. I didn't have kids, right? And I was the only person that was starving was me. So that made it a little easier.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what understanding your system and what its tolerances are.
Got it. I mean, when you're saying a lot of this stuff, like is ringing bells in my head too, because like I'm one of those people too. Like when you said the quote, "I'll be as lazy as they let me be," that hit me in the soul on a very like deep level. Cause like I feel the same way a lot of times. And I'm learning too as I got older, because like the way my mom raised me, she was very much like on top of me, like if I didn't do my shit, I was getting spanked or getting in trouble. And like, I'm also realizing too, as an adult, like I like being held accountable. I like people like putting pressure on me, because I actually work best under high pressure situations where I have a short time to get it done and where somebody's holding me accountable. But like I've designed this life where it's like the opposite, where I have my own business. No one is holding me accountable. I'm the one holding myself accountable. It's like I'm almost being like too strict with myself, but I almost would like an accountability buddy, which is something that I probably will work on after today. But just like you said, understanding what your systems are and what you need and what will be the most optimal situation for you. And so thank you for that explanation. And you're right, it does make way for a way cooler story. But something else that came to mind when you were telling the story is like, I remember a couple of times in my life where I was making decisions and stuff, and where you said you just looked out 2 years and you just saw this whole life and you just saw all the decisions that you make. And like, it's funny too, like as I've become wiser through my years and made a lot of mistakes and through making wrong decisions, I now find myself when I'm making big decisions now doing that exact practice, sitting there and being like, all right, what does my life look like a couple of years from now if I do make this choice? Because choices have more repercussions now. And also as I get older, I'm more conscious and aware of time. And I don't want to waste time like I did when I was younger, when I was more amenable to higher risks. So there's been a couple decisions lately with like marketing companies and decisions I made for the direction of the company. It's like, I realize I'm choosing a direction I'm going. And I had to sit and think about those directions at length, because once you start down the road, it's sometimes very hard to just turn around and go back. I mean, you can, but I think, like you said, it's wise to look ahead and see what that life looks like.
Yeah, I think whatever you're gonna do it quickly. There's a great quote. I wish I could remember. I'm a big fan of pseudo-poetic one-liners and quotes from smart people. And one of the quotes that I remember, I wish I could cite the source, said, I don't regret any mistake I've ever made. I regret not making them faster.
I literally was going to say the same thing right now.
Right.
Yeah. I've heard multiple speakers say it. I don't know who was the originator of it.
Success loves speed, right?
Yeah.
Money loves speed. And because what is money? It's energy, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to steer a car that's going 60 than one that's going 2, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, even if you're in the wrong direction, you can steer if you're moving, right?
Yeah.
Stay in motion.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. And even it's like decision fatigue like plays into that too, right? Like when you are making a decision, and it's better for you to just make it and fail faster. And I'm not saying go into something blind, don't have a plan.
Right.
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just make the decision as quickly as you can. Stop lingering, overthinking it, making sure it's perfect. You'll figure it out as you get along. Make it a wise decision and just go for it. And the faster you fail, the faster you learn, the faster you grow. And that's something that I've like learned a lot of, because like I have my own networking group of personal injury attorneys, okay? And I don't consider myself like wildly successful by any means, but I'm doing great. The company, we hit 7 figures and like we're doing good. Things are great. But a lot of the younger attorneys that are in my group, they always ask me like, how'd you do this? How'd you figure that out? I'm like, I fucking fucked it up. I failed and I did it wrong, and I risked malpractice multiple times in my career because I had to figure it out on my own, because I didn't have a mentor when I started my practice. I, for some reason, could not find a good mentor in my field, and no one wanted to come and help me unless I gave them a huge case, which means I would refer it to them. They might make a bunch of money. And if they were going to make a bunch of money, sure, they would give me a couple minutes of their time. So a part of the reason that I created this networking group is so I could help support other people. And that's been a big conversation with a lot of the younger kids when they're coming in. They're like, hey, Joe, how did you do this? How did you do that? I'm like, I failed.
Right.
I did it wrong, very wrong. And then I learned how to do it correctly. And they're like, well, could you recommend a book or anything? I'm like, honestly, you should probably just like try it on your own, figure it out. Cause that's the only way to really learn something, in my opinion, is you have to have the pain of failing. And the most effective pain is always monetary pain. If it hurts your checkbook, it is something you are going to change and you're going to do properly. And this is why, like with my firm, we're very process oriented. Like we have hundreds of steps that we do within each personal injury case. And everyone on my team is like, why are there so many steps? I'm like, each one of those steps is where I lost money. That is something I did wrong. It cost me hundreds or thousands of dollars. Earlier in my career, I could only afford hundreds. So those were the mistakes of the hundreds. And then later on in my career, I've made mistakes that cost me tens of thousands of dollars. And now we have processes, and we're very, very good at what we do, because I felt the pain from hundreds of times of doing it the wrong way and figuring it out the right way. And I don't mean hundreds of times doing it the wrong way, but the times that I have through the hundreds of cases, the few times I've gotten it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody learned anything by doing it right.
No, you don't learn shit by doing it right. It's fair. Yeah. It's very real. Yeah.
I had a client. He was so funny. He had a dry erase board on a big wall you could write on, right? And I saw this acronym up in the corner, like way up in the corner. And his name was Chris. I was like, Chris, what is FITFO? What is FITFO? And he turns, he looks at me, he goes, figure it the fuck out. Told him I'm stealing that.
That's really good. I like it. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's true. You gotta just sometimes do things the hard way. And also too, from like, people come to me for advice, and obviously people come to you for advice. It's also having the wisdom to like be able to kindly tell someone, I could tell you how to do this, but you should really figure it out on your own, because that's where the growth and where the learning is. Because you can read a book about something, you can be told something, but until you actually experience it yourself and go through it, you're never going to learn it the same way.
Yeah, I don't actually give advice. It's not my job. It's, I say it's not even my job to be right. It's my job to be disruptive. And so when somebody, every now and then somebody will really press me for advice. I said, look, if you really want advice, go ask a 6-year-old, because they'll give it to you and they'll probably be right. But
yeah, even when you're talking now, I'm realizing nothing you've given me has been advice. You're just helping me.
Advice. I'm saying, here's the mirror.
Yeah.
what are you feeling? If I say this, we know what happens, but I don't really tell people what to do beyond tools. Like, here's a tool, here's why the tool works. So you have autonomy. You can bend the tool around or make a different one that does the same thing. But Erica Young says, advice is what you ask for when you already know the answer, but wish you didn't. And
it's like when people come to me as a lawyer, it's
right?
the truth.
And
they all want advice. They're like,
but,
should I do this? I'm like, the fact that you had to call me to ask if you should do this,
right.
you shouldn't be doing this.
Right. I said, you're not asking me what to do. You're asking me for permission.
Yeah.
And they go,
that's good. I'm going to take that.
Right. Because when clients ask me I said, you're not asking me what to do. You're asking for permission to do it. And I tell people, I said, look, my job, because I'm not in the advice business, my job is to, and you have, like, anybody I talk to has every answer they're ever going to need is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't need to figure out the answer.
Yeah.
What I got to figure out is what is stopping them from accessing the answer they don't know they have.
Yeah.
Right. So how do I give them access? So my job is to seek and dissolve the barrier and then support them in relating to what they find and then calibrate it to the magnetic north that they have, right? So I tell people, I said, I'm not going to tell you what to see, but I will show you where to look. Yeah. And I will support you in relating to what you find.
Yeah. Yeah, even like last night when I was thinking about this podcast with you today and I started pondering what I wanted to talk to you about, I just noticed, like anything in life, if you take the time to sit and work through it and think about it and really, like you said, I don't remember that time of therapy you discussed, but take it out of yourself and kind of have Gashal, have that conversation back and forth. A lot of times you can come to the conclusion that you need on your own. Mm-hmm. And even just this is why meditation is so powerful. This is why just taking time to think, to ponder, go for a walk. Like, I'm just like, even pay attention more that I've not been taking the time to sit and really fully develop through this thought, because I might have been able to come to this conclusion on my own. I'm glad that I didn't, because this was a lovely conversation. Your perspective has been really good and I really respect it. So thank you so much. But a lot of stuff that you're discussing is just understanding that it's all here. Mm-hmm. Everything you need is in your soul and it's in your heart if you just take a moment to listen and pay attention to what's being said to you.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Because you don't need any more books. You don't need any more podcasts. You don't need, you in particular, you don't need any more information. Like, you already know everything. Your opportunity now is to really embody that which you've learned and incorporate it and live in alignment with that.
Yeah.
Like, when you start practicing it, when you start embodying it, that's when everything changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I think the podcast feels pretty good right now.
Yeah, you feel complete?
I mean, I feel pretty good.
Feel spent? You're going to be okay the rest of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be fine the rest of the day. Yeah, but I'm just saying.
Sometimes clients are like, I got to take the rest of the day off.
Yeah, but thank you for the reflections. This has been really nice. Is there anything else that you feel you want to talk about or something that we haven't hit?
I'm along for the ride here. I'm on your journey. You're not on mine here. So
you just know when it feels good. Yeah, it feels good the way that we just ended those last couple of sentences like a minute ago. So I think it's good. Yeah, dude, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So Chris, if you could do me a favor, can you please give everybody your contact information so that they know how to reach out to you and so that they can get back in contact with you if they're looking for any fine tuning or any guidance. Not advice,
right?
From a horrible human being,
right,
that doesn't care.
So that'll be my next endeavor. I'll just give bad advice on the Venice Boardwalk. $5, bad advice, right? So yes, you can reach us at statusflow.net. We're on Instagram, of course, at the Status Flow. That's probably the two best ways to get a hold of us.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for tuning in and being part of this journey. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next episode.